All right, and shalom, shalom, shalom. This is Deacon James, and I'm with the King James Bible University, coming out of Durham, North Carolina. And before I get started, I just want to make sure real quick, I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me really good. So if y'all can hear me, can y'all put I in the chat real quick? I just want to make sure that everybody can hear me before we get started. All right, cool. So we good. All right, so once again, shalom, shalom, shalom. Like I said, this is Deacon James, and I'm with the King James Bible University, Durham, North Carolina. And today's topic that we're going to be speaking on is the strangers are who? These are not the Gentiles. So we got to figure out who these strangers are. So in today's lesson, this lesson is actually just picking up from last week's teaching, what I said that I will finish out this part breaking down this false doctrine that has been taught by the EOI. Because we seen on last week how it was commanded of us as the children of Israel not to mix with other nations, and how making these interracial marriages was in direct violation of the Most High God law, and also the consequences that came with that, showing you all throughout scripture that joining to other nations is in violation of the Most High God's law. But today, we're going to deal with these strangers. So I'm going to be showing you how these guys at the EOI, they have tried to do anything. They have tried to do and say anything to push these false narratives and this false doctrine saying that we, the children of Israel, can marry Gentiles by even making the claim according to their understanding of Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 21 through 23. They believe that the strangers who sojourned among Israel and had inheritance with them is talking about Gentiles. That's what they believe. So they try to use that verse to say that we can marry these other Gentile nations and Gentiles was dwelling among us. And that's not true. These strangers are not talking about Gentiles, and we're going to prove that. But what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and pull these clips to show you exactly what they saying, what they talking about. Because you even going to see in the clips, I'm going to pull multiple clips, but to show you, they going to be saying the same as that thing, but they all basing it off of Ezekiel 47. And for some reason, they think that this is just the golden ticket verse to let everybody know, yo, you see what it's saying right there? Oh, it's talking about the Gentiles, but you're going to see it. And we're going to see exactly what they talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the clips so we can see exactly what these guys are talking about.
Don't get discouraged. It mentioned you also. Go to Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 23. Everyone that I teach, everyone that Elder Stephen teach will be in the tribe of Judah, no matter where walks of life you've been. Judah teach will be in the tribe of Judah, no matter where walks of life you've been. You will be accepted in the tribes of Judah. These words going to prove it. Ezekiel chapter 47. And we're going to start at 21. Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 21. So shall he divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. It's equal inheritance. Equal inheritance. It's equal inheritance in the kingdom. And it shall come to pass that and ye shall divide it by lot for inheritance unto you and to the strangers. That's the Gentiles. Inheritance unto you and to the strangers. That's the Gentiles. Inheritance unto you and to the strangers. That's the Gentiles. Inheritance unto you and to the strangers. That's the Gentiles. Inheritance unto you and to the strangers. That's the Gentiles. That sojourn among you, which shall begot children among you, followers or children. That's the ones who you teach what we read about in Isaiah chapter 56. I said your cousins and everyone, those will be your followers with your children. And they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. Did y'all see that? Y'all understand that? They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel, the strangers. Verse 23. And it shall come to pass that in what tribe the strangers sojourneth, that's why we're bringing you in and teaching you the spiritual law. There shall.
So we already see what he's saying. According to this verse, he's saying that these strangers that sojourn amongst Israel is talking about Gentiles. Saying he think it's talking about white nations, Gentiles. This is what he's saying, but I'm gonna go ahead and roll this other clip so you can see they saying the same thing each time. They truly believe that this is what they're saying. They truly believe this.
Two portions.
Who's going to be living in the land of the 12 tribes? Can we drop down to 21? Carnally. This is what it says.
So I had double understanding.
Double understanding. You're going to have that carnal and the spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 21. So shall ye divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel.
Remember, brother Tobit 4:12, right? He said of your tribes, right? This is how you're going to divide it.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 22. And it shall come to pass
Future prophecy.
that
Mm-hmm.
shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you and to the strangers.
Whoa, wait a
No.
Only Israel. This can't be happening.
Wait a minute.
Not the stranger.
Easy there. Easy.
Can't. No way.
Easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hey,
did you feel that hate? Did your heart fluttering as that
I
hate
know that's
starts
right.
to come out your skin? That's the hate
I know
coming
that's
out.
right. Hey,
Now y'all see how they sit there and they think they doing something. Just like Deacon Khalil just said. They think they doing something. So, ooh, y'all see that? Y'all see that? We got you. You see that? You see? The strangers. It's right there. It's talking about the Gentiles. We got you. You see how they pull this verse and now all of a sudden now they think they done did something and they don't even know what this verse even talking about. But this is what they doing. This is let's just keep playing it.
It's the Lord.
hey, he gonna be dancing going in there. What's up, brother?
Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time religion. Give me that old time.
You should have listened, brother. Oh, excuse me, brother. You have a seat. Oh, yeah,
Right.
yeah. You have a seat, brother.
Would you
Right.
like some of this pomegranate wine? Damn right.
To the strangers that sojourn among you,
What you gonna do with them strangers?
which shall beget children among you,
Some doctrine's gonna come out. That's spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
and they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel.
Y'all gonna have
That's
the
right.
same doctrine.
You better shut up. You better
Right.
shut up. Know what
Most
the
High
Most High
gonna
said.
consider them people children of
Right.
Israel. That's what it's telling you.
His, one people, one stick. He said in one
Right.
stick, Ezekiel. Yeah. But
All right, yeah, I'm tired of listening to that. I had another clip I was gonna show, but look, we just gonna go ahead and deal with it. So, yeah, we seen what they saying in the clips. Like you got they talking about the strangers is the Gentiles that sojourn among children of Israel, which was not true, and then they was gonna have this equal inheritance with the tribes of Israel. This is what they talking about. So this is what we're going to be breaking down, and this is what we're going to be dealing with. But, you know, this lesson more so going to be more so of a history lesson, showing who these people are, showing who the strangers are, and who those Gentiles is talking about. And they're not talking about the same thing. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. So we're going to start right here. We're going to start right over here in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 47, right? The same verse they pulled. Ezekiel, chapter 47. And we're going to hit verse 21 down to 23. That's the verse that they had. So Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 21 down to 23. And it says, "So shall ye divide this land unto you according to the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that ye should divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you and to the strangers that sojourn, so meaning that dwell, that abide among you, which shall begat children among you, and they shall be unto you as comparing born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel." Verse 23. "And it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall you give him his inheritance, saith the Lord God." So I'm going to be kind of going through this pretty kind of fast because I got a lot of information here, but, you know, we going to hopefully we're going to go ahead and get through it. But we see that these strangers that you will see that sojourn amongst the children of Israel, these are not Gentiles. Physically, the only people who sojourned amongst the children of Israel, who was surrounding the children of Israel, was Ham children, because they the ones that dwelt amongst the children of Israel. Because just as we were strangers in their land, just as we were strangers in their land, they were strangers. So it's telling you about the same people who land we were strangers in. It's really as simple as that. But you got people that's making it more complicated. They making it more complicated than what it actually is. But in order for them to be as comparing one with us as one homeborn in the country, they have to take on our customs and hold to our God, the God of Israel. Then they can be as one with us. See, we don't take on their ways and their customs and join to them. They have to take on our ways. So we still have to make that distinction clear. And this is going to be a pretty straightforward teaching. So we're going to go ahead and get into it. So let's go. We're going to start right over here in Exodus. So we can see in Exodus chapter 12. In Exodus chapter 12, and we're going to hit verse 47. And we're going to take it down to 49. Exodus chapter 12, verse 47 down to 49. And it tell you, and it says, "All the congregation of Israel shall keep it." He talking about the Passover. Verse 48. "And when a stranger shall sojourn, shall dwell with thee." So you see it right there. "And will keep the Passover to the Spirit of God. Let all his males be circumcised. Then let him come near and keep it." So he already letting you know that these strangers have to first be circumcised. So they have to be separated from the foreskin of their flesh, of their heart, showing obedience. Then they can keep it. But if they don't make that vow, then they can't join to us. They have to make that commitment first. That's why he said, "Then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat, shall learn thereof." So he let you know, no uncircumcised. So if they join the idols, you worldly, you defiled, a heathen, join to a harlot of the world. None of these can learn and join with us. Not if they hold into their idols and they stay joined to the world and practicing wickedness, because that circumcision has to happen of one's flesh. But spiritually, that's telling you of one's heart. And once that happened, he tell you right here in verse 49, one law, one covenant, one truth, One language shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. So this is what has to go down. But this is pertaining to the strangers that sojourn amongst us, the children of Israel. See, these would be Ham's children. It wouldn't be no Gentiles sojourning amongst us. But these strangers had to take on the covenant of our God and join to us. That's the only way that they could be as comparing one homeborn. But that's why he even tell you when you go back up, we're going to go up to verse 43. And he tell you right here, we're going to hit Exodus chapter 12 and verse 43. He tell you, he says, and the Spirit of God said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat, learn thereof. Why? Because if the strangers that came in was still holding to their ways, being uncircumcised, holding to the ways of the world and being worldly and holding the idols, then they can't join to us. Simple. Because they have to fulfill that vow and be obedient to the covenant first. Only then will this apply that we see right here in Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 22. And it shall come to pass that ye shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you, and the strangers that sojourn dwell abide among you, which shall begat children among you, and they shall be unto you as born in the country among the children of Israel. They shall have inheritance with you among the children of Israel. But at no time was this talking about Gentiles or white nations. You don't see that there. This was referring to Ham children because we were strangers in their land, and they also sojourned with us. You had some of them that even came out with us out of Egypt. But in order for them to be as one homeborn with us, they had to take on the ways of our God. We can't take on their ways. That's the point, because that's why he even tell you this when we go over here to Leviticus. So we're gonna be over here in the law a lot. So hey, we just gonna go through it. We're gonna go to Leviticus chapter 22. Leviticus chapter 22, and we're gonna hit verse 25. That's why you see this here. It says, neither from a stranger's hand, so neither from a stranger's power shall you offer the bread, the knowledge of your God of any of these, because their corruption is in them. So their pollution, their sinfulness, their uncleanness is in them, and blemishes be in them. They have spots and conditions in them. They should not be accepted for you. Why? Because these strangers can't sit there and offer any knowledge, because their stuff is polluted. Their ways, their customs, their lifestyle, all that stuff is polluted. You can't offer that because they not the ones that's in covenant with the Most High God. The Most High not going to accept this offering because everything has to still come through Israel. That's why it goes right back over here to Exodus chapter 28, Exodus chapter 12, verse 48. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Spirit of God, let all his males be circumcised. Then let him come near and keep it. Only then can they join to us on this condition that they be circumcised, being separated from the flesh and separating from these abominable lifestyles. If they don't go through this process, then they still defile. That's why it goes right back to this here. It's still tying you to Ham children, but in order for them to be accepted, they have to join themselves to our God and be in covenant with us. They can't be holding to those idols and all these false gods. They can't be holding to those beliefs. But keep this in mind, once again, these strangers can join to us, but we, the children of Israel, are not to join to them. That's the catch. They can join to our beliefs and our God, but we are not to join to their beliefs and their customs. That's why you see this here. When we go over here to Deuteronomy chapter 7, that's why you even see this here. Let's go. Deuteronomy chapter 7, we're going to hit verse 1 down to verse 4. And you see it. It says, when the Spirit of God, thy God, shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and have cast out many nations in the presence of thee, the Hittites and the Girgasites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. See, a lot of these you see right here are from Ham. See, these are strangers, but watch what he say. And when the Spirit of God thy God shall deliver them in the presence of thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy to them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter shall not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take to thy son. Why? Verse 4, for they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Spirit of God be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. So he's making it clear to us right here. When he bring us into the land, when he was bringing us into the land, he was bringing us amongst these strangers, and we was going to take over their land. And we were supposed to cast out those ways, those beliefs, those doctrines, those lifestyles they was holding to. We are not to make marriages with them, meaning to join to them. Because if we, the children of Israel, join to them, then we will become defiled by joining to their stuff. That's the point. That's the catch. But the ones that remain, if they want to join to us, then that's one thing, as we already seen. But they have to become circumcised, as we see right here. So they have to remove those fleshly ways and those idols and uncleanliness they was holding to first, and then they can join to us. See, that's one thing. But we, the children of Israel, are not to join to them. That's the point. That's why you see it's saying it the way it's saying it here. Neither make marriages with them, because we not to join to them. The strangers, these children of Ham, can join to us, but we not to join to them. That's what's going on here. They can take on our customs, but we are not to take on their customs. We're going to see this again, because we have to remember that Deuteronomy is actually a reiteration of something that was already said, which we're going to see in Exodus chapter 34, which we're going to see right here. In Exodus chapter 34, and we're going to hit verse 12, and we're going to take it to verse 15, because he already made it clear beforehand. And it says, take heed to thyself, lest thou make a covenant with the inhabitants of the land whither thou goest, lest it be for a snare in the midst of thee. But ye shall destroy their altars, break their images, cut down their groves, for thou shalt worship no other God. For the Spirit of God, whose way is jealous, is a jealous God. Lest thou make a covenant, lest we make this agreement with the inhabitants of the land, and they go a whoring after their gods, and do sacrifice unto their gods. And one call thee, watch what he's saying, and one call thee, and thou learn of his established covenant. That's the point. So we can't learn of their ways. That's why it goes right back over here to what we just seen in Leviticus chapter 22 and verse 25. Neither from a stranger's power shall ye offer the knowledge of your God of any of these, because their corruption is in them, and blemishes be in them. They should not be accepted for you, because we can't learn of that stuff. We're not to make a covenant with them. We're not to learn of their ways and their gods, because their ways are polluted. It's full of blemishes and sin. So the only way a stranger can be as comparing one homeborn is if they leave from their ways and join to us. It ain't no us joining to them and we mixing with that stuff. Nah, it don't work like that. Because if we did that, then we'll end up mixing doctrines and beliefs. And that causes confusion. That causes whoredom. And that can't happen. We can't have this confusion and whoredom within the body. That's why we have to be really strict on how this go. So we see right here, back over here in Exodus chapter 34, verse 16, he says, and thou shalt take their daughters unto thy sons, and thy daughters go a whoring after their gods, and make thy sons go a whoring after their gods. So that's the point. See, if they sitting there, they want to roll with us, then they can be as one with us, as one homeborn. But if not, we can't join to them, because we can't join to their beliefs, because everything has to still come through Israel. We can't mix with their beliefs. It can't be no mixed doctrine. We can't make no covenant with them. They have to join to us and follow our God, not us joining to them and following their stuff. Hopefully all of this that I'm saying so far is making sense. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. Hopefully everything that I'm saying is actually making sense. But remember, these strangers that's referring to Ham's children, this ain't talking about Gentiles or white races of people. Because Ham's children was the only ones that were sojourning among us. It won't no Gentiles there that were surrounding us. And I'm going to even show you that later. But as far as these strangers, if they want to join to us, they have to first take hold to our law. It can't be no mixed beliefs. That ain't going to happen. That's not something that can happen. Because if that happens, then that's going to cause defilement within the body. That's why we can even see this here. Why you even see this here. When we go to Leviticus chapter 19 and verse 19, that's why you see this. It says, ye shall keep my statutes. Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with diverse kind. And that's the Esters. Don't You can delete his comment, but don't block him because you gonna be coming up in a little bit. So don't worry, Dexter Esters. We gonna deal with you in a little bit on something that was going down. But anyways, let's get back to the teaching. But we see right here, Leviticus 19, you should keep my statutes. Thou shalt not let thy cattle gender with a diverse kind. Thou shalt not sow thy field with mingled seed. So with mixed seed, and seed spiritually we know is the word of God. So you can't sow the field with mixed word, with mixed doctrine, with mixed wisdom and knowledge. So he making it clear right here. It can't be no mixing on anything. No mixing doctrine, no mixing knowledge. This is what it's actually telling you. So if a stranger is going to sojourn amongst the children of Israel, whatever doctrine or belief they hold into, they got to get thrown out the window because they got to get killed. Then they have to hold on to that law that JEHOVAH gave the children of Israel, because it's only one law. It's only one law. It can't be no mixed law. It can only be one law. That's why it goes right back over here to Exodus chapter 12. Exodus chapter 12 and verse 49. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. So it can't be no mixed law. It's only one law. It can't be no mixed belief. But this is why you have a lot of people that have the problem, even today, just like that Dexter Esters and all these people that teach false doctrines and all these people that try to come over here and do things a certain type of way. You have people that believe that they can mix their beliefs with yours. This is why we don't claim or hold to any other organization outside of King James Bible University and the House of the Lost Sheep of Israel. Or do we hold to any other belief outside of this Bible and the things that we're being taught? But you have people that come over here to KJBU and try to mix with us, thinking it's cool, and it's not. You have people that try to bring their beliefs over here, and that's why you end up getting checked at the door. That goes for EOI, all camps, all Christians, any of you. That goes for anybody that comes over here and tries to mix their doctrine and their belief over here and think that that's going to be accepted over here. See, you have people that believe just because we teach Bible, people think that's an open door to bring your garbage over here, thinking we all believe the same thing, thinking we all worship the same God, and that's not true. So when you come over here and you don't learn over here, and you try to inject yourself over here into what's being taught, then that's why you get checked. But then you sit there and have a problem with it. Why? When he tell you we ain't the mix, you see it. We ain't gonna mingle no seed. We ain't gonna mix no word. We ain't gonna mix no doctrine. But y'all got a problem with it when you get checked on it. For one, we don't know you. Two, we don't know what type of belief you hold to. So technically, you just as a stranger yourself, because you don't hold to the God of Israel. You hold to something else. So if we don't know you and you coming over here trying to push your own belief or sit there and try to run random scriptures in the chat, you're going to get checked on that. And you most likely will get removed. Why? Because we don't mix doctrine. We don't mix beliefs, because it's only one law. It's only one truth. And that truth is coming from the pure, unadulterated word of the Spirit of God. And you cannot mix the truth of God's word with any other belief system. I don't care what it is. So if you ain't rolling with the God that we serve, the God of this Bible, JEHOVAH, you ain't joined to the truth of God's word. You holding to something else. Then we don't know you. That goes for all camps, all Christians. Because I'm even show you when people want to sit there and they want to mix beliefs and thinking that's cool, that causes defilement within the body. And that's a huge problem. We can't let that happen. That's why you see this in Deuteronomy chapter 22 and verse 9. That's why you see it. He says, Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 9, thou shalt not sow, so thou shalt not plant thy vineyard. This vineyard is a garden, a field, a place of communion. Thou shalt not plant thy place of communion with what? With diverse seeds, with diverse word, with diverse knowledge, with diverse doctrine. So you can't have a whole bunch of different beliefs here. Because if you do that, watch what's going to happen. Less the fruit, less the works of thy seed, lest the works of thy word which thou hast sown. So that word you done planted and the fruit, the work of thy vineyard, the work of thy people, that place of communion, be what? Be defiled, be polluted. Exactly the point. This is exactly why we don't allow people to just come in here and say and do whatever they want to do. This is why we run things over here as strict as we do, because we cannot afford any corruption, any pollution, or any defiled doctrine to come within this body, within this congregation, and pollute it. Because the word of God, the truth that's being taught here, has to stay pure. It has to stay undefiled. That's why you can even see when people that's new over here, it's best for you just to sit back and learn. And if you got a question, then you can come in the Zoom. But we ask you to introduce yourself. We need to know who you are and know what belief you coming from. Why? Because we don't need nobody over here that's trying to push some crazy Christian camp doctrine belief outside the word of God. And you sit there and try to confuse somebody over here that might be weak and then end up corrupting the body. That ain't going to happen. We can't afford no corruption over here. This is why we hold to things the way we hold to, so strict. But then you got these camps. You got these camps and these Christians that will invite anything into their congregation as long as it sounds good to them. That's why you have EOI and all these people sitting there letting anybody put scriptures in the chat. As long as you pull 2 or 3 scriptures, it sounds good to them. It's accepted and you can become an elder. But then they got all different types of beliefs. The whole vineyard is defiled. The whole place of communion is defiled. The whole body is defiled. That's the point. That's why we have to hold to this the way we hold to as we see here in the law. But not to get too much off the point, because I kind of went on a rant right there, but we ran to these verses initially, these 2 verses right here initially, to show you that mixing seed, mixing doctrine and knowledge, that's a violation of God's law, and we can't do that. That's why it's so important that if any stranger join to the children of Israel, those strangers have to become circumcised in their heart, removing their fleshly ways and their worldly beliefs first. Then they can be as one homeborn. It can't be the other way around. They can't come among the children of Israel and want to mix their beliefs and do stuff their way. It don't work like that because we not to join to them. But that's why you even going to see why what went down was so much of a problem here, which we going to see. So we're going to go right over here to Genesis. Genesis chapter 34. Genesis chapter 34, verse 1 and verse 2. And he tell you right here, we see it right here. It says, and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. So we can see right here that Shechem is the son of Hamor the Hivite. These are the children of Ham. So these are strangers. They was dwelling with us. But Shechem, the issue here, Shechem sat there and thought he could do something the way how he wanted to do it. And he took it upon himself to take one of the daughters of Israel, Dinah, to defile her. And why was this so much of a problem? We're going to see right here in Deuteronomy chapter 22. Deuteronomy chapter 22. And we're going to hit verse 5. Not verse 5, verse 25. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 25. And it says, but if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her, and lie with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die. So this is how Dinah was defiled, because she was betrothed. She was already joined. But this Shechem seen her and thought it was cool that he could take her and lay with her and do whatever he wanted to do with her. And that very act was a serious breach in our law. This is why this was so much of a problem. She was betrothed, 1, and 2, we the children of Israel are not to join to them. That's the point. That's why I showed all that in the beginning of this lesson. If those children of Ham want to join to us, they can join to our God and become circumcised first. They have to do that first. Only then can they be as one homeborn among us. But this Shechem, not only was he uncircumcised, 1, 2, he was defiled himself, and he took Dinah and forced her to lay with him, to join to him, making her defiled. This is why this was so much of a problem, especially with Simeon and Levi. That's why they had so much of a problem with this, because this was an unlawful act committed by Shechem, which was in 100% violation of God's law against the righteous. So judgment had to be brought upon these men for that. Now, while we over here, like I promised, that's the Esters. I hope you're still here, and I hope you're still listening, because you had this guy who constantly comes in the chat and he leaves these comments over and over again, and he leaves the same comment. That's the Esther's. For some reason, he comes in a chat and he leaves these comments, but he never, ever, ever comes into Zoom when Zoom is open for him to come in there because he's too afraid to actually show his face. But he can be a chat ninja. He can be a little bitty chat preacher, but he can't go and speak face to face with nobody. But I'm gonna show you this. This dude right here, he left this comment after my lesson last week, and then he left the same comment on Brother LeVar Thomas' lesson yesterday. This is what he said. Isn't this what the Lord said concerning women's from other nations? First, he tried to use Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 10 through 13, which if y'all go check that, everybody over here is probably going to fall out their seat, even for the fact that this dude even thought that this was even a verse that he could have ran to. That's probably one of the stupidest things he could have done. But then we see here, he goes to Genesis chapter 34, verse 13 to 24. So the EOI are right. Shalom. So this is just an example to show you when people come over here, he's not the only one. This goes for all false people, false prophets, people who teach false doctrines who do this. People come over here and try to inject themselves over here and don't know what's going on. But this is just an example for that. This dude really believes that this Genesis chapter 34, he truly believes that Genesis chapter 34 is telling you that the Lord is telling us that it's okay to marry women of other nations. Based on Genesis chapter 34. This is what he believed. And this is probably one of the worst places that he could have ever went to. And this is insane. But we're going to go through this just to show you that, yeah, that's not what that's talking about. But this ties into the lesson because these was actually strangers over here, but there was an issue that went down. So we're going to go through it so we can show you what's going on. So, but it's showing you that these guys, they don't have any comprehension or understanding the scripture. So, but when we look at Genesis chapter 34, we're going to hit verse 13 and verse 14 so you can even see what even they were saying about what went down. So when you see this right here, it says, and the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor, his father, deceitfully. So they setting them up. They not even being truthful with them. And said, because he had defiled their Dinah, their sister. Verse 14. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. So they actually letting them know from the jump that this was an issue. They're not cool with this. This ain't telling you nothing good. Because when we go back up, we're going to hit verse 5 down to verse 7. And it's going to tell you that this whole thing was an issue that went down. So he tell you right here, verse 5 down to verse 7. And it says, and Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field, and Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. Watch this. And when the sons of Jacob came out of the field, when they heard it, so once they heard what Shechem done did to their sister, the men were grieved. They were angry. And they was wroth. Why? Because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. So this act that was done, it was folly. It was sin. It was iniquity. It was wickedness. Shechem was in severe violation of God's law for what he did. So this wasn't cool. They weren't okay with this. This was wickedness that went down. So this not telling you anything concerning women from other nations. This is showing you an unrighteous act that was committed and the consequences that came behind it. See, the Most High would have dealt with this anyways. But since Simeon and Levi decided to take it upon their own hands, vengeance was already served. But because there had to be a recompense regardless for what was done, justice had to be served. And we're going to see what happened here when you go to verse 25, and we're going to take it down to 31. Genesis 34, verse 25, down to 31. And it says, and it came to pass on the third day, when they were sore, the two sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword and came upon the city boldly and slew all the males. And they slew Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword and took Dinah out of Shechem's house and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled the city because they had defiled their sister. They took their sheep, their oxen, their asses, and that which was in the city and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones. Their wives they took captive, and spoiled even all that was in the house. Verse 30. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have troubled me to make me stink among the inhabitants of the land. Among the who? The Canaanites and the Perizzites. So even right there, it's showing you who we dwelling with. These are the children of Ham who are sojourning with us. These not Gentiles. And I being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me and slay me, and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. See, Jacob had a problem with it, and he even told him about it later on. But we can even see here who the children of Israel was dwelling amongst. These ain't talking about no Gentiles. So we ain't seen no Gentiles pop up in the picture yet. Y'all let me know if y'all seen the Gentiles pop up, because I ain't seen them pop up yet. But all of this is showing you this whole act that was done. It was all jacked up. It was all a wicked act committed by Shechem. So that same wickedness had to be recompensed upon their own head, because that vengeance had to be served, which we even going to see here as well. You can see it here. When we go over here to Judith, we go over here to Judith chapter 9. Judith chapter 9 and verse 2 and 3. Judith chapter 9, verse 2 and verse 3. He tell you right here. It's telling you about that. In Judith's prayer, it's telling you about that same story. O Lord God of my father Simeon, whom thou gavest a sword to take vengeance of the strangers, who loosened the girdle of a maid to defile her, and discovered the thigh to her shame, and polluted her virginity. So they polluted her pureness, her purity, to her reapproach. For thou saidest, it shall not be so, and yet they did so. Wherefore, thou gavest their rulers to be slain, so that they die their bed in that lifestyle, being deceived, and smotest the servants with their lords, and their lords, their rulers, upon their thrones. That's why you can see this here. That vengeance was still served based on what happened. A pure one was defiled, and that resulted in consequences. So, to that's the Esther's. I mean, I don't know if he's still here, but if you're here, leaving that comment, trying to use Genesis 34 to justify your reasoning or thinking it's okay to join women of other nations, that wasn't no good place to go, dude. That was not no good place to go. That was probably one of the worst places you could have went to, but it's showing where you stand in your understanding. But that whole situation was wickedness that went down. That act by Shechem was an act committed against the righteous and 100% in violation of the Most High God's law. So they had to pay for that. But when we get back over here to Genesis chapter 34, verse 31, he tell you, and they said, so this is Simeon and Levi, they said, should he deal with our sister as with a harlot? Shall he deal with our sister as with a whore? I want you to answer that. Dexter and whoever else. You cool with somebody dealing with your sister as with a whore? Or you gonna be cool with that? You gonna lay down and put your tail between your legs while some dude just grabbing up your sister and doing whatever he want to do with her? You cool with that? All right. So you see what they saying. So it's showing you. This ain't telling you about the Lord saying anything concerning women from other nations. This, what was done, was in violation of the Most High law. It was folly in Israel. That's why he told us not to join to them, so we wouldn't have these types of issues. That's why I showed this, because these strangers, we cannot mix with their beliefs and what they hold into. We can't join to their customs. Neither can they come in and try to do things how they want to do it, trying to defile us. That's why Shechem thought that Dinah was free game and he could do her however he wanted to do it. And he found out real quick that wasn't the case. But the only way for them to be as one with us, they first have to join to us. But what Shechem did, see, this is why this was a problem. Shechem, he completely violated the law. That's why you see it couldn't work that way. The point is, any stranger that sojourn among the children of Israel, These children of Ham, if they want to join to us, that's fine. But first, they have to first join to our belief and circumcise themselves from the flesh before they do anything else. They can't just come in and do stuff however they want to do it. But if they first circumcise their heart and join to our God, then they can be as one with us. Then, only then, will we treat them as one homeborn. Then we must treat them as our brother and love them as ourselves. Because now from that point, they will be under that one law of God. Now you will see these things that will come into play. Once those things happen, you see these things come into play. Because you have to understand how this works. You can't just man, you can't just open a Bible, think you know something, and then you just don't even know what you're talking about. But you see it right here. Leviticus chapter 19, starting at verse 33 and 34. And it says, and providing a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, you shall not vex him. Why? Because you're not to punish him. You're not to torment him. You're not to persecute him. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as comparing one homeborn, one born among you. And thou shalt what? Thou shalt love him as thyself. For you, he's talking to us, for you were strangers in the land of who? The land of Egypt, the house of bondage. I am the Spirit of God, your God. Shoot, I didn't even show that part. My bad. Hey, I'm sorry, y'all. I'm going to read verse 34 again. But the stranger that dwelleth with you shall be unto you as comparing one born among you. And thou shalt love him as thyself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Spirit of God, your God. So that's the point, which this further clarifies on who these strangers actually are. He's explaining it to us. Just as we were strangers in the land of Egypt, because we was in their land. We was in their land. We, the children of Israel, were strangers to the covenant because we was dwelling in the house of bondage. But when you flip it, now those same strangers, if they dwelling among us and they want to worship our God, they can do that and be as one with us, just as we were strangers in their land. Hopefully this makes sense to somebody. I mean, this is pretty straightforward. So, but they can be as one homeborn in the land, just as the children of Israel, if they take on to our God and hold to our ways, our tradition, our heritage, our customs, our beliefs. This is what has to happen. And we even gonna see an example of one who actually was operating like this. We're gonna go to it. Let's go over here. We're gonna go to 2 Samuel. 2 Samuel chapter 11. We're gonna go to 2 Samuel chapter 11. We're gonna hit verse 6 down to 17. 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 6 down to 17. Hold on. 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 6 down to 17. Let me just highlight all of it. And there we go. All right. Starting at verse 6. And it says, we're going to see this one right here. And David sent to Joab, saying, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. So we know that Uriah is a Hittite. We know these are from Ham. So Uriah is of the children of Ham. So he would be one of the strangers. This ain't talking about no Gentile. But Uriah served under David with the children of Israel and went to war with the children of Israel. So he sojourned with us, showing that Uriah was a faithful follower of our ways of the Most High. Verse 7, when Uriah was coming to him, David demanded of him how Joab did and how the people did and how the war prospered. Verse 8, and David said to Uriah, go down to thy house and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. See, the only reason David wanted him to go back to his house and be with his wife, because David was trying to hide the fact that he laid with Bathsheba and she was with child. That's the only reason he wanted him to go back. See, David was doing some shady stuff right here. But keep in mind, Bathsheba didn't join to Uriah. Uriah joined to Israel because he joined to us. It wasn't the other way around. But we even going to see that David himself was even in violation for what he did. Being that Uriah, though Uriah was a stranger, however, he sojourned amongst Israel. So he was rolling with us. So if he's rolling with us, then you got to treat him like a brother. You can't do him wrong, because you see it right here. If a stranger sojourn with thee, you should not vex him. So, hey, if he rolling with us, then you can't do him wrong. But we're going to see what happened. Verse 9. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house. So you see his faithfulness on how he doing. Verse 10. And when they had told David, saying, Uriah went not down to his house, David said to Uriah, camest thou not from thy journey? And why then didst not thou go to thy house? You see what he's saying. But watch how Uriah even responds. It's going to show you where his allegiance is to. Verse 11. And Uriah said unto David, to the Lord's beloved, the ark, the heart of God, and Israel and Judah abide in tents, and my Lord Joab and the servants of my Lord are encamped in open fields. Shall I then go into my house to eat and drink, and to lie with my wife? As thou livest, and as thy soul liveth, I will not do this thing. So that's showing you he ain't going to budge on anything. So this exemplifies one who was a stranger of the children of Ham, who actually joined to our way and our belief. This was Uriah. He was a faithful servant sojourning amongst the children of Israel. That's the point. But the issue that comes with this, it goes right back to this. Leviticus 19:33. And if a stranger sojourn with thee in your land, ye should not vex him. So once a stranger joins to the children of Israel, then they are to be treated as one of us. So we cannot vex them. We can't torment them, persecute them, punish them. We can't do them no wrong. But this is exactly what David did. This is what he was in violation of. One, he laid with Bathsheba, which he laid with another man's wife. Two, since Uriah wasn't going to go to his wife, David decided to be shady, trying to hide the fact what he did, and he got Uriah killed by throwing him to the hottest part of the battle. We're going to see it. Back over here in 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 14 down to 17. And it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And it's showing you how loyal Uriah is, because he sent the letter by the hand of Uriah. And Uriah, man, we going to see it. Verse 15. And he wrote in the letter saying, set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. It's jacked up. And it came to pass, when Joab observed the city, that he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew that valiant men were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. So we see what happened there. He purposely sent Uriah out to the hottest battle that he would die. And that won't cool. That won't cool at all. Because David was clearly in violation of the law. Because you got to love your neighbor as thyself. And Uriah is now joined to Israel. Since he's joined to us, then he has to be treated as one of Israel. Uriah was a loyal servant. And this, what David did, was completely wrong. And there had to be consequences for that. And you can even look at it, even a little bit of what Elder was teaching on the last Sabbath. Every action has a reaction. So whatever you put out, once something goes out, that has to come back. So that had to be enacted because of what was done. That lifestyle that David put out based on what he did had to be recompense upon his own head. And we're going to see that right here. When we go over here to 2 Samuel. We're going to go over here to 2 Samuel chapter 12. And we're going to hit verse 9 and verse 10. And you're going to see what happened. It tell you. And it says, wherefore hast thou despised the commandment of the Lord to do evil in his sight? Thou, meaning David, you, has killed Uriah the Hittite with the sword, and has taken his wife to be thy wife, and has slain him with the sword of the children of Ammon. Now, for that reason, this is what's going to happen. The sword shall not depart from thy house. There you go. Because thou hast despised me, and hast taken Uriah, the wife of Uriah the Hittite, to be thy wife. So we see it right there. You're going to reap what you sow. The actions that David did, that same thing came right back upon him. Just as it said, thou hast killed Uriah the Hittite with a sword. He tell you, now therefore, the sword shall never depart from thine house. Why? Because that child died. So we see that. That same thing came right back upon him. This is why we have problems. The same thing that he put out came right back upon him. This is why it's so important that we understand what's going on. So I showed all that just to show that Uriah was a stranger, but one who joined to Israel. But just as it was then, the same applies today. If any strangers join to the children of Israel and take on our way, then it's one law for them and for us. And we must treat them as one with us. Because if they hold into our ways and they faithful servants to our God, then we must treat them. We can't treat them wrong. Because if we treat them wrong, we do wrong by them, hey, that's going to come right back upon us. Then we're going to have a problem. So these are things that we have to keep in mind. That's what we have to understand. But then you have people out here that want to do all this crazy stuff, because I'm even show this here. Because you even have like a lot of camps and stuff that like to run this here, and they think that this is talking about something else, and it's not. But they like to run over here and think they. You see this right here in Isaiah chapter 14, verse 1 and 2. This is what you have. Plenty of camps. You have like majority of all camps like to run this, and they completely looking at it in a whole different way. But it says, for the Lord, the Spirit of God will have mercy on Jacob, and yet will choose Israel and set them in their own land. And the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Spirit of God for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, who captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. See, people think this talking about having people in slavery and bondage. That don't even make sense. But these strangers still refer to Ham children. But you don't see it telling you about no Gentiles or Japheth going into captivity, or they're going to have chains on them and all this crazy stuff. It's not saying that. Neither is it telling you about having slaves or any of that. But that's what people like to push. All of this is saying is these strangers that's going to cleave to the house of Israel. That's going to be one that's going to be joined to us. They're going to be servants to the way of God. And it's just showing you a change in government. Instead of their ways being in power, they're going to be humbled to the way of JEHOVAH. And that way is going to have dominion over them. They're going to humble themselves before JEHOVAH's authority, being servants. But it's not saying nothing about nobody being slaves. That's stupidity. It's not saying none of that. But out of everything that we've shown so far, we have not seen at nowhere at no time that these strangers is talking about Gentiles, because we gonna get deeper into it. But we have not seen nowhere at any time that these strangers is telling you about Gentiles, because you have to understand that the children of Shem and the children of Ham was always dwelling together, because Ham children are the strangers, just as we were strangers when we were in their land. Gentiles are not strangers, because they had nothing to do with this, because they didn't sojourn with us, because Gentiles was put off. Japheth was put off from Shem and Ham, but Shem and Ham always dwelt together. So we're going to see something. Let's go over here to Genesis chapter 9. We're going to get a little history. Genesis chapter 9, and we're going to hit verse 26 and verse 27. He telling us exactly what's going down. Genesis chapter 9, verse 26, verse 27. And he said, blessed be the Lord God of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant. Canaan. Matter of fact, I want to show y'all, based on even what I said about being humbled, because I don't want to even show you that in the spiritual dictionary, what it even says when you go to Canaan. I want to show you. You see it right here? Canaan. You see merchants, you see trader, but you see right there, to be humbled. Same thing with Canaanites. Servant, to be humbled, to be subdued, to be brought low. That's why I was saying they're going to be servants. But that's why you even see it said right here, Canaan shall be his servant. That's the whole point. It ain't saying, oh, they're going to be slaves and they're going to be in bondage. No, they're just going to be servant to the way of JEHOVAH. Verse 27, God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Why? Because he's going to be persuaded to think he's Shem, and he's not. That's why you have many Jewish people that believe they Israel and they are not. And Canaan shall be his servant. But we can clearly see here that Canaan and Shem dwell together. They always dwell together, because Canaan, they were the strangers. They were foreign to the covenant, but they could come in to dwell with us because they sojourned with us, just as we were strangers in Egypt and we sojourned with them. I'm going to put this back up here. Let's go back over here to Leviticus chapter 19. Leviticus chapter 19, and we're going to hit verse 34 again. And it says, But the stranger that dwelleth among you shall be unto you as comparing one born among you, and thou shalt love him as thyself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Spirit of God, your God. So he's making that comparison. Just as we were strangers in their land, I'm going to prove that these ones that he's saying, you were strangers in the land of Egypt, I'm going to prove that these ones of the land of Egypt, these strangers are actually telling you about him. It's not telling you about Gentiles. It's not telling you about Japheth. We're going to prove it because you're going to see it right here when we go over here to Psalms. Let's go to Psalms chapter 105. Psalms chapter 105, and we're going to hit verse 23. Psalms 105 and 23. You see it right here. It says, Israel also came into Egypt, and Jacob sojourned. So what? Jacob dwelt where? In the land of Ham. So it's letting you know, this strangers is talking about him who sojourned with us. It ain't telling you about no Gentiles, the children of Japheth. So we see it right here. Israel came into Egypt. So it's telling you we sojourn in the land of Ham. And these are Ham children. These are Canaanites that we was amongst and sojourn amongst us. These were not Gentiles. These were not white people. They was all still black. Why you think we was able to all blend in together? Why you think Moses was able to blend in Egypt? Why you think that was? Why you think that they thought Paul was an Egyptian? Why you think Joseph and Mary took Yahushua or Jesus and hid him in Egypt? Why you think we was able to do that? Because they was all black. We always were sojourning and dwelled among them. At no time was these strangers that sojourn among us talking about Gentile nations. Let's go over here. We're going to hit Psalms. Psalms chapter 78. Psalms chapter 78, and we're going to hit verse 51. Psalms chapter 78, verse 51. And it says, and smote all the firstborn of Egypt, the chief of their strength, in the tabernacles of where? The house, the dwelling of Ham. So he's telling you. So in the land of Egypt, this was the land of Ham. So the children of Israel were in the land of Egypt, but this is the children of Ham. These are strangers that he's referring to. That's who the children of Israel sojourn amongst. Even some of them came out of Egypt with us. But these same ones, those strangers that sojourn with us, because we were strangers in their land, so they sojourn with us. That's why you see this here. When we go over here to Deuteronomy chapter 23, we're going to hit Deuteronomy chapter 23, and we're going to hit verse 7. This is the only part we need right here. Deuteronomy chapter 23, verse 7. It says, thou shalt not abhor an Edomite, for he is thy brother. But this is the part we're looking at right here. Thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian. Why? Because thou was a stranger in his land. He telling you, thou shalt not abhor an Egyptian, because thou was a stranger in his land. And the land of Egypt was the tabernacles, the dwellings of Ham. So it's letting you know, these Egyptians is talking about strangers, the land of Ham, because we were strangers in their land, and they sojourn amongst us. It's literally that simple. See, I don't know how much simpler that we can make this, because it's no way to say or prove that strangers were Gentiles and that strangers are Gentiles. Gentiles are not Egyptians. Gentiles are not the children of Ham. So you can't force that to be there when it's not there. Because if you guys, anybody who claim you teach Bible, actually studied and searched the scriptures, you will see that those strangers who sojourn amongst Israel was Ham all the time. It's all throughout scripture. But that's why he even tell you, that's why I say, this is why we can even see this here in 2 Timothy 2:15. That's why this is important. He tell us. When you get over there, 2 Timothy 2:15, it says, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. So you have to study to get the understanding so you can rightly divide the word. You can't just read something and then you see strangers, then you automatically pin that to Gentile. Oh, this guy be talking about Gentiles. How does that make sense? You didn't even go study it. But you want to sit there and force an understanding that's not there. Now you pushing a lie, and that don't even make no sense. because you didn't take out the actual time to study anything. So those strangers was never talking about Gentiles. Those Gentiles is talking about the children of Japheth. They was not sojourning in the land with us because Japheth was put off to the isles of the Gentiles. They were not the strangers that he was referring to you seen in Ezekiel. Because you got to understand the difference. Because we're going to see who these Gentiles are when we go over here to Genesis chapter 10. In Genesis chapter 10, it's going to show you. Genesis chapter 10, we're going to hit verse 2 down to verse 5. You're going to see right here. And it says, the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, and Taris. The sons of Gomer, Askenaz, and Riphath, and Togarmah. The sons of Javan, Elishah, and Tarshish, Kittim, and Dodanim. What? By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after his customs, after his language, his traditions, after their families in their nations. See, these are the Gentiles, literal Gentiles, after their families, after their households, and their lineage, and their people. This is where Japheth was put off to, because he was basically bred out by these Gentile nations. These are Gentiles, white races. These are not strangers. We already proved who the strangers are. But these was put off to the isles. They did not sojourn amongst the children of Israel. Once Japheth was put off to these people, they were separated from Shem and Ham. They weren't even in the land. You won't even see these people come into play until later on when we started going into Greek captivity. So you can't even say that these Gentiles are strangers. These Gentiles are foreigners. So to all Gentiles that's here that might be listening, I'm going to even make this clear to you again. It ain't nothing in here that's telling you whoever you follow, that's your father. See, your father not Abraham, Isaac, or Jacob. Your father is who you come from. That's why you can even see this here. But this applies to everybody. When you see this in Numbers chapter 1, in Numbers chapter 1, we're going to hit verse 18. And it tell you, it says, and they assemble all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declare their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers. But this applies to everybody. Why? Because that seed is within itself. So whoever that father is, that's who you are. And that's where you from. That's why you see this over here in Genesis. Genesis chapter 1 and verse 12. And it says, and the earth brought forth grass, these people, herb yielding seed after his kind, and a tree yielding fruit, these works, whose seed was in itself after his kind. God saw it was good. So this is clear. That seed is within itself. Strangers are not Gentiles. Gentiles are not strangers. Gentiles are from the children of Japheth after their families and their households. Strangers are from the children of Ham. This is clear, simple understanding. So I'm gonna make this clear also, which I won't go do it, but I'm gonna make this clear also. So we not sitting here. I'm not sitting here saying, because people think we're not sitting here saying anything like, oh, they hate white people. No, I don't hate white people. I'm not saying that. We don't have any issues with Gentiles or white races of people learning over here and learning truth. We don't have no issues with you. We don't have no issues with that. But you have to understand that there is still a separation and distinction that's there. Just because you learn what the truth is, that does not make you the children of Israel. You are still a Gentile. Just because you see the verse saying the strangers that sojourn among us being one homeborn, that still only applies to the children of Ham that was dwelling among us. That does not apply to Gentiles. Ham children was the only ones who can be as comparing one homeborn. They took on our beliefs. That don't apply to Gentiles. Gentiles can still learn, but there's still a separation between Gentiles and the children of Israel. So I want to make that clear. So matter of fact, I'm going to show you something. See, I'm going to just prove the point of what I'm saying. So at no time, understand, at no time did the Bible ever say that Gentiles couldn't receive salvation. But there's a separation between the children of Israel and the Gentiles. Because I'm going to even show you where it's at, where you can see it. We're going to go over here to Revelation. Revelation chapter 11. Let's see it right here. All right. Revelation chapter 11. And we're going to hit verse 1 and verse 2. You're going to see it. And it says, and there was given me a reed like unto a rod, and the messenger, the angel, stood, saying, rise, and measure the temple of God and the altar and them that worship therein. So this right here is telling you about the children of Israel in the kingdom. But this will also include those strangers that join to us that have inheritance being as one homeborn, because they will be as comparing one with the children of Israel in the kingdom in the worship area as servants. But in verse 2, you're going to see the separation. But the court, which is without the temple, leave out and measure it not, for it is given to the Gentiles. So you see that right there. So you see right here, the Gentiles are on the outside of the temple. They won't be joined with the children of Israel. So I'm showing you this to show all of you, to all camps, to all Christians, any of you that's here listening. Yes, Gentiles can receive salvation, but they're going to be on the outside. They're not going to be in the worship area in the temple joined with the children of Israel and those of Ham that's joined to us that receive that being as one homeborn, because that doesn't apply to Gentiles. At no time did you hear anybody here say that Gentiles can't receive salvation. We never said that, but that wasn't the focus, just to make that clear. But I'm making that clear now. So if Gentiles want to come here and learn, then they can learn. We ain't got no issues with that. But what I'm showing you is Gentiles are not and will never be the children of Israel. They are not the strangers that sojourn with Israel. So regardless, that separation between the children of Israel and Gentiles will still be there. So I'm just showing you all this just to make that point. So anybody that's saying and that's teaching that Gentile nations can be the children of Israel, and that Gentile nations are strangers that sojourn with Israel, then you are lying on the word of God. All because you didn't know that Gentiles can receive salvation. They just won't be Israel. But because y'all so focused on worrying about Gentiles being saved so bad, y'all try to force them in with the children of Israel by pushing these false doctrines, not knowing the truth, that Gentiles can still receive salvation. But they still separated from Israel. So it ain't gonna be no slaves in the kingdom or none of that. It's still gonna be peace for them too. But they just won't be joined to Israel, because the Most High God don't change. His word is the same forever. So this is why all you camps and Christians have the problem. This is why we have all these false doctrines out here like this spiritual Israel crap, making claims that all nations can be Israel. But the scriptures never stated that Gentiles and other nations couldn't receive salvation. It never said that. But it was never the focus. That's why you don't even see us even bringing this up a lot, because it's not the focus. Because the focus has always been on the children of Israel, God's chosen people, because that's who this book was written to. He never changed anything. He never included Gentiles in that covenant. Gentile nations would still be separated from Israel always. But I'm just showing all of y'all, you camps and you Christians, I'm just showing you guys this because all of you who push the lie that y'all push because y'all don't understand scripture, you tried to include Gentile nations in with the children of Israel, not understanding how these things work. But to EOI, all false teachers, all false camps, all false Christians that have sat there and told a lie that Gentiles can be the children of Israel and have said that Gentiles are the strangers that sojourn amongst Israel. It don't even matter what you say from this point, because you done blaspheme the word of God by telling the lie that you told and by teaching it. So don't even waste your time trying to go back and say, oh, well, we didn't see it, that we didn't know, we didn't know that back then, so we repented of it. No, don't even go back. And you can't even go back and do that because you done taught the lie. So you're going to have to pay for that lie that you taught. So don't even waste your time. But let's get back to the teaching. But I just wanted to show y'all that. So I'm even going to show you a more clear distinction between strangers who was Ham's children and these foreigners who are Gentiles. And when they even started coming in our gates, because this started happening later on, and we're going to see that. So we're going to start right here in Obadiah chapter 1, and we're just going to hit verse 11. Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 11. And it says, in the day that thou stoodest on the other side. So this is talking about Esau, but Esau not the white man. Esau was a black man. But anyways, in the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that the strangers carried away captives his forces. So these strangers is telling you about Ham children, and including foreigners entered into his gates. So once these foreigners came in, these was these Gentiles that entered in and cast lots upon Jerusalem. Even thou was as one of them. Why? Because they was confederate. They was united with each other at this point. You see the strangers carried us away captive, and the foreigners, including the foreigners, entered in. So it's showing you the separation between them. Because when we was in the Canaanites land, we could blend in over there because we was all black. But these same people, these of Ham children, they had us in captivity, but they sold us to the foreigners. They sold us to the Gentiles. And then you had Esau that sat right there and let it happen. Because how do you think when these foreigners came in, how do you think they knew exactly who we were? How you think they was able to point us out? Because for one, Esau there, he our brother, and then you got the strangers who always sojourn among us because they know who we are. So we can clearly see a clear distinction between these strangers and these foreigners. So they're not the same. These strangers that sold us was Ham. The strangers sold us to these foreigners, to these Gentiles that enter in. That's who we were sold off to. See, when these Gentile nations started coming in, that's when everything started going crazy. And we even going to see how they was operating. We going to see. So we going to see how once these Gentiles started coming in, they was on a whole different ball game. You going to see they was not the strangers who we were sojourning with. They was a whole different people. You going to see it. We're going to go over here to 1 Maccabees. Let's go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1. Let's go. They was on a whole nother level. We're going to see it. In 1 Maccabees chapter 1, we're going to hit verse 1. We're going to jump down, but we're going to hit verse 1 right now. 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 1. And it says, and it happened after that Alexander, the son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chedum, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead and his replacement, the first over Greece. So we even going to see, you see that this Alexander came out the land of Chedum. It says Chedum right there, but I'm going to show you what this was talking about. Because that Chedum is that same Chedum that you see over here. When you go back to Genesis chapter 10, you see the sons of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshach, Tyrus, the sons of Gomer, Askenaz, Riphah, Togarmah, the sons of Javan, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim. That's him. This Alexander that came out the land of Kittim, that's him that you see right over here. Kittim. By these were the isles of the Gentiles. So that's where he coming from. So this was Alexander. He coming out of the land of Kittim. But when we jump down, we're going to hit verse 7. We're going to hit verse 7 and we're going to take it down to 11. Verse 7 down to 11. See, this is stuff started going crazy. So Alexander, the same one from this land of Kittim, from the Gentiles, reigned 12 years, then died, and his servants bare rule every one his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils was multiplied upon the earth. Okay, verse 10. And there came out of them a wicked root. Who? These Gentiles. Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 130th and 70th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we had much sorrow. So we see that these Greeks right here that came, these were Gentiles. These are not the strangers. The strangers we see in the children of Ham. These are the Gentiles that started coming in. But we decided to join them. And they won't play. They came and they won't play no games. Because we're going to see exactly what they did. They won't no joke. They won't play no games with us. You're going to see exactly what they did. You're going to see it. We're going to hit verse, because I'm going to skip around a little bit. So we're going to hit verse 41 down to 44. You're going to see. First Maccabees chapter 1, verse 41 down to 44. And it says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and everyone shall leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. So we can clearly see the difference right here, how these Gentiles was rolling. They had us leaving our laws and joining to their ways and being one people under their laws. So we see how everything got reversed. Because remember, back in the Old Testament, the Most High told us if a stranger sojourn among us, then they would have to be circumcised and become as one homeborn. And we already seen that and even proved that when we seen that with Uriah, he was a faithful servant. And those strangers that sojourn amongst us. So we know those strangers was not white people. It won't Gentiles. Because if it was, then they would have already been familiar with those laws. But we see right here, these Gentiles right here, these Gentile people coming in with their own laws. We already seeing how these Gentiles rolling right here. They coming in destroying everything. This is showing you that these people are not strangers that were sojourning amongst us. This a whole nother nation of people that done came up. These Greeks, these Gentile nations, they not strangers. He telling you in verse 43, yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, sacrificed the idols, and profaned the Sabbath. Verse 44. For the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah that they shall follow the strange laws of the land. So there's a difference between the strangers and these strange laws. See, the strangers are Ham children. These strange nations are these Gentiles because they brought in these strange laws and these strange things that they was doing. And we're going to see these strange things that they was doing when we're going to hit verse 48 down to 50. And then we're going to jump down again. Verse 48 down to 50, and it says that they shall also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. You see what they doing? And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die. So we going to jump down some more. We going to hit verse 57 down to 61. We're gonna see some more. And it says, and whosoever was found with any of the book of the testament, so the book of the covenant, the book of the promise. So if they found anybody with the book of the covenant, or if any committed to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month, they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which is upon the altar of God. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised. Verse 61. And they hanged the infants about their necks and rifled their houses and slew them that had been circumcised. So we see all this stuff that they doing once these Gentiles came in. See, all this stuff that you seeing right here, you didn't see these types of things happening until these Gentiles came in. They come in changing all the ordinances, changing the laws, changing anything, burning up our books, burning up our covenant, our records, and hanging infants by their necks, doing all this crazy stuff. So you can clearly see they won't sojourning with the children of Shem and the children of Ham. They came in and brought in strange laws from another land, from another country, and started doing these strange things. This is what they was doing. That's why you can even see when you go over here, we're going to go to, let's go to 2nd Maccabees. We're going to see some more because I'm just showing you the distinction. These Gentiles, they not the strangers. They on a whole different ball game. They ain't come to play. Because you're going to see in 2nd Maccabees chapter 7, verse 1 down to 4, you're going to see some things they did here. And it said, and it came to pass also that 7 brethren with their mother were taken and compelled by the king, still Antiochus, against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourge and whips. But one of them that spake first said thus, what wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die, rather than to transgress the laws of our fathers. Then the king, being enraged, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot. Watch what they did. And forthwith, being heated, he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first. and to cut off the utmost parts of his body, and the rest of his brother and mother looking on. See, this is the type of stuff they was into. These are Gentiles that were doing this. They didn't come in. See, they didn't come in till later on once we went into Greek captivity, what you see going on right here. But this is how they operated, this barbarous type people. They was never the ones that was sojourning amongst the children of Israel. The strangers who sojourned amongst the children of Israel was Ham's children. It won't these Gentiles that we see right here. These Gentiles were strange. They was foreign, but they was not the strangers that was dwelling with us. These Gentile nations were completely different from the strangers, because you can even look back and then I'm gonna ask this question, and then y'all tell me, where do you see at any time? Where did you see at any time when we went into captivity before any of this? Where do you see that Ham and them was messing with our laws and trying to change our ordinances? Where did you see that? Even when we went into captivity in Egypt, you don't see where Ham and them was trying to change our ordinances and our laws and do all this crazy stuff. Where do you see where they was trying to burn up our books and destroy our records? All this that you see right here, burning up the book of the Testament. You see it right here. You see it. It said, and when they had rent in pieces the books of the law, they found them burnt with fire. Where did you see any of Ham's children or any of those strangers doing this type of stuff that you see right here in Maccabees? See, when we was in bondage in Egypt, they mainly had us in captivity in bondage and just forced us to hard labor. But you don't see them trying to burn up our book and trying to destroy our records of our covenant. But that's the same thing that you see today, when most of us didn't even know what the truth was, and we didn't know about the Apocrypha. Why? Because you had those Gentiles that try to do away with the Apocrypha because they said, oh, this not canon. It's not canon. Because they didn't want us to know about our history, which you seeing right here. Sitting there hanging infants by their necks, cutting people up and stuff and frying them in cauldron pans. You didn't see none of this stuff going on when we was dwelling with Ham. Because if y'all saying to anybody that believe that the strangers was Gentiles, if y'all saying that the strangers back in Exodus, back in the Old Testament, that sojourn among Israel was Gentiles, I got a question for you. If you saying that the strangers that sojourn among Israel was Gentiles, then why didn't you see them doing the stuff back then that you see them doing right here in Maccabees, that we see these Greeks doing? You got to answer that. Because we already know these Greeks are Gentiles. We see how they operating. But back there in Exodus, you don't see the strangers burning our books and changing our ordinances and messing with our laws, hanging infants and doing all this stuff. Even today, you don't see none of this stuff happening until these Gentiles and these Greeks came in. So how can you say that the strangers that sojourn among us was Gentiles when they didn't even operate the same way? How can you say that? You didn't see none of that stuff happening until they came in. They came in our gates and we went into that Greek captivity and all this crazy stuff started happening. You didn't see all that stuff happening with the strangers sojourning amongst us. So you can't say the strangers is the Gentiles. They just started coming in and started wreaking havoc because they came from the isles. They were separated from us, showing you once again they want the strangers that sojourn amongst us. But we even gonna go over here. I'm gonna show you something over here in Judith, because we can even see the difference here. We're gonna go to Judith chapter 5, because you can even see the difference here where you had strangers actually, those strangers that actually dwelt among us who wasn't from the children of Israel. They actually knew about us. They knew who we were. They knew our history. They even knew themselves what would happen if we held to our God and what would happen if we didn't. So those were the ones who were sojourning amongst us and clearly knew about us, because I'm going to show you they clearly knew this. So we're going to go to Judith chapter 5 and we're going to start at verse 1. We're going to take it to 6. Judith chapter 5. We're going to start it at verse 1 and we're going to take it to 6. We're going to see right here. Judith chapter 5, starting at verse 1 to 6. And it says, Then it was declared to Holofernes, the captain, the chief captain of the army of Asher. Now, Asher was from Shem, but remember, Asher, he was confederate against us. You can even look at that in Psalms 83. You can see that Asher was completely against us. So, but you see that this Holofernes, the chief captain of the army of Asher, that the children of Israel had prepared for war and had shut up the passages of the hill country and had fortified all the tops of the high hills and had laid impediments in the Champagne countries. Verse 2, wherewith he was very angry and called all the princes of Moab and all the captains of Ammon and all the governors of the seacoast. See, these was actually dwelling among us. These people was dwelling among us. These are not Gentiles, but they knew our history, and we gonna see it. Verse 3, and he said unto them, tell me now, you sons of Canaan. This is telling you that China is Canaan. Tell me now, you sons of Canaan. So he letting you know, these sons of Canaan. Who is this people that dwelleth in the hill country? And what are the cities that they inhabit? And what is the multitude of their army? Wherein is their strength, their power and strength? And what king is set over them, or captain of their army? Verse 4, and why have they determined not to come and meet me more than all the inhabitants of the west? Watch this. Watch who spoke up. Then said Achior, the captain of all the sons of Ammon, let my Lord now hear a word from the mouth of thy servant, and I will declare unto thee the truth concerning this people, which dwelleth near thee. Yeah, because they were sojourning amongst us, and inhabiteth the hill countries, and there shall no lie come out of the mouth of thy servant. This people are descendants of the Chaldeans. So he know where we come from. So they clearly know our history. They know exactly where we come from. Like he said, he asked them, he said, tell me now, you sons of Canaan, who this people? And you seen this Achior, he spoke up and he let him know exactly who we were. But if you keep reading down, we ain't going to read the whole thing. But if you keep reading down, you will even see he explaining, he telling all our business. He going through all our history. But we going to jump down. But if you want to read the whole thing in your spare time, I'll go back and read it so you can see it. But we're going to jump down to verse 17 and we're going to take it to 21. And we're going to see. This is still Achior. He's still speaking. He's going to show he clearly know who we are. It tell you in verse 17, and while they sin not before their God, they prospered, because the God that hateth iniquity was with them. But when they departed from the way which he appointed them, they were destroyed in many battles, very sore, and were led captives into a land that was not theirs. And the temple of their God was cast to the ground, and their cities were taken by the enemies. Watch this. But now are they returned unto their God, and are come up from the places where they were scattered, and have possessed Jerusalem, where their sanctuary is, and are seated in the hill country, for it was desolate. Verse 20. Now, therefore, my Lord and governor. See, Achior about to tell Holofernes, he about to tell him some information that he need to know. Now, my Lord and governor, if there be any error against this people, and they sin against their God, let us consider that this shall be their ruin, and let us go up, and we shall overcome them. But if there be no iniquity in their nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest their Lord, their creator, defend them, and their God be for them, and we become a reproach before all the world. So he clearly let you know that these people right here, they clearly know what's going on. These are strangers. They clearly knew our history. They clearly knew who the God of Israel is, and knew if we followed our God, then he would defend us. So Achior was letting that captain, Holofernes, know, like, hey, look. If these children of Israel following their God and they ain't got no iniquity in that nation and they Lord defend them, then hey, we need to leave them alone. Hey, I'm just saying, he know, because then we gonna have a problem. So he was clearly knowledgeable. He was clearly knowledgeable of this, showing you that these men here, these was not no Gentiles. Because show me where the Gentiles came in and they knew our history. And they knew who we was. They just came in and started doing us in. Like you seen, this Antiochus, these Gentiles, they just came right on in and started doing us in. They didn't know. They just started going crazy. Tell me where the Gentiles knew our history like you see over here in Judith. And the Gentiles was put off to the isles. Because this guy right here, this Achior, clearly knew who God was because they always sojourned with us. They knew who we was. That's the difference. But I'm going to even show you this same one that spoke over here, this Achior, he actually fulfilled what we actually was even looking at, what we seen here. I'm going to show you what he did. What he did. Because remember we was over here in Exodus chapter 12, and we seen verse 48 and 49, where it say, when a stranger is doing with thee, keep the Passover of the Spirit of God, let all his males be circumcised, then let him come near and keep it. He shall be as one born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall learn thereof. One law shall be unto him, the homeborn, unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. That stranger that sojourned among you, we gonna see that Achior, he actually sat there. We gonna see exactly what he did. So we gonna go to Genesis chapter 14. Achior, hey, he said, hey, I don't want no problems. We gonna see what he did. We gonna go to Judith chapter 14. We gonna see something. Am I in Exodus? Why am I in Exodus? Judith chapter 14. We gonna see it. Judith chapter 14 and verse 10. Let's see what Achior did. Same one we seen. And when Achior has seen all that the God of Israel had done, what did he do? He believed in God greatly and circumcised his flesh. That's like it telling you over here what they supposed to do. Of his foreskin, and was joined to the house of Israel unto this day. So you see, Achior was fulfilling that because he joined to us. He won't no Gentile. This is clear. He clearly knew our history because they was always around us. That's the point. But when we get back over here, you see that these Greeks and Maccabees, they ain't had nothing to do with us. They didn't know none of this information that we reading over here in Judith. They just came in and started taking over everything, started changing the laws, changing the ordinances, everything. Same thing you see going on today. They don't know nothing about our people. They don't know nothing about our history and our God. They just came in and started changing stuff to how they want to do it. So these Gentiles was not the strangers who sojourned amongst us, as we seen. Because if so, then what they would have, because if the Gentiles were the strangers, then they would have known our history. And they definitely wouldn't have came up in here and did us the way they did while knowing the repercussions of it that would have came behind it. But they didn't know our history. They didn't know nothing about us. That's why you seen this same Achior why he spoke up. Because he was like, hey, we're going to go back over here. That same Achior, that's why you see why he was saying what he said. He says, now therefore, my Lord, if there be any error against his people and they sin against that God, let us consider that this should be their ruin, and let us go up and we shall overcome them. But if there be no iniquity in that nation, let my Lord now pass by, lest their Lord offend them and their God be for them, and we become a reproach before all the world. So you telling me if these were Gentiles, and you telling me them Gentiles came in and they knew that, you telling me you think they would have came up in there doing what they was doing? And yeah. But it's letting you know, showing that these Gentiles wasn't them. These Gentiles wasn't strangers. It's showing you that the Gentiles are not strangers that sojourn amongst us, because they would have actually known about this. That's the point. So we can clearly see, and we've proven and shown that these Gentiles weren't the strangers that sojourn amongst the children of Israel. So we're gonna go back over here to the original verse, because man, it don't even make sense why you have these men that sit there and have taught this lie the way they taught. And it just don't even make sense. I don't get it. But when we go back over here to Ezekiel chapter 47, we're going to read this again. Ezekiel chapter 47, verse 21 down 23. And it says, so shall you divide this land unto you according to all the tribes of Israel. And it shall come to pass that you shall divide it by lot for an inheritance unto you. and to the strangers that sojourn among you, which shall beget children among you, and they shall be unto you as comparing born in the country among the children of Israel, and they shall have inheritance with you among the tribes of Israel. Verse 23, and it shall come to pass that in what tribe the stranger sojourneth, there shall you give him his inheritance. Thus saith the Lord God. So we can see that this concerns those that dwelt and sojourn amongst the children of Israel, being as one homeborn. But it can only refer to those children of Ham that sojourn amongst us, just as we were strangers in their land. But once they circumcised their flesh and separated from the ways of the world and became as one with us, that's what they could do. But this at no time was talking about Gentile nations, because we clearly seen and shown that it won't no Gentiles even around us. So this inheritance, as he spoke of, these traditions passed down, the wisdom, the understanding, the customs, the heritage, these spiritual blessings, everything that we need to inherit eternal life in the kingdom of God. This all pertains to the children of Israel. But the caveat is these strangers, these children of Ham, can be brought in as comparing one homeborn and join amongst us. So they can join to that. So that would pertain to them if they join to us, joining to the children of Israel and receiving that right. So on the physical side, we can see that strangers will refer to Ham's children, those that sojourn amongst the children of Israel, who can join themselves to Israel being one homeborn. But we have to always look at both sides because it has a dual nature, because we can even see that even us, the children of Israel, was even strangers ourselves, who was alienated from the covenant of the Most High, being reconciled back to him because we were strangers following foreign ways that was not of our God. And I'm going to show y'all that. Yeah. So we're going to show y'all that. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and close out this teaching, y'all. So we're going to go over here to Colossians chapter 1. And we're going to hit verse 21. He tell you right here. He says, and you, he's speaking to the children of Israel, that were sometime alienated and enemies in your mind by wicked works, yet now have he reconciled. So this is speaking to the children of Israel, because who else went off from the covenant? We know it's not referring to literal Gentile nations, because they was never in covenant with God from the jump. We the only ones who was in covenant with JEHOVAH and transgressed against him, because how else was we going to be reconciled? Because we went off and joined ourselves to heathens, as we seen in Maccabees, how we join ourselves to the Gentile ways. This is what he's talking about. So we was alienated from the Most High God's law because we were strangers to it. Ephesians chapter 4. We're going to hit verse 18 down to 24. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 18 down to 24. And it says, having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that is in them, because of the blindness of their heart, who being past feeling have given themselves over to lasciviousness, to work all uncleanness with greediness. But ye have not so learned Christ. Verse 21, if providing so be that you have heard him and have been taught by him, as the truth is in Jesus, meaning the truth is in the way of salvation, that you put off concerning the former conversation of the old man, which is corrupt according to deceitful lusts, and be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on the new man, which is after God, is created in righteousness and true holiness. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 19. You're going to see it right here. He's talking to us. He says, now, therefore, for that reason, you are no more strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and of the household of God. So you see that we, the children of Israel, ourselves were strangers because we was foreigners to the covenant with our God when we was separated and alienated ourselves from it. So we had to come back into covenant with the Most High, making us no more strangers, but as fellow citizens of the household of JEHOVAH. See, this ain't talking about literal foreigners, literal Gentiles of Japheth. This ain't talking about that. This is talking about Israelites who was foreign to God's law and strangers to it. So it's impossible for anybody to sit there and tell the lie that the strangers was referring to Gentile nations, because we showed you on both sides how the children of Israel, we were strangers physically and spiritually when we was in a foreign land, and also being alienated in our own minds from JEHOVAH, being strangers to the truth of God's word. And also we showed you those strangers, who those strangers was talking about on the physical side, who sojourn amongst us, that joined to the children of Israel. And we seen them was talking about Ham's children that sojourn amongst us. So you can see it both ways. And as the strangers that physically sojourn with us, including those of us, the children of Israel, who were strangers to the Most High, never at any time was it telling you about these strangers that sojourn with us was Gentile nations, but us, the children of Israel, being back in covenant with the Most High. So, I mean, it's really as simple as that. This is straightforward on what's going on. But we're going to see this here as he tell you on what we supposed to be doing, as you see it right here. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 11. He tell you, dearly beloved, promised ones, I beseech you as comparing what? Strangers and pilgrims, abstain from fleshly lusts, which war against the soul. So, you see it right there. You see how those of us who are joined to JEHOVAH, who are joined to the church, who are joined to the God of Israel, just as we were strangers to his ways and his laws, living according to the flesh, we now should be denying the ways of the flesh and mortifying the deeds of the body, becoming strangers to this flesh, becoming strangers to this world. This is exactly what should be happening. This goes for the children of Israel, JEHOVAH's servants, and the strangers that sojourn amongst us. Once strangers to the covenant, now strangers to the world, being fellow servants of the household of JEHOVAH. So we should clearly see what's going on, and we should clearly understand what we just went through and what just happened. So hopefully everybody understood this teaching. Hopefully we clearly understood what was just taught and what just went on. So hopefully with that, we got some understanding on this, showing you that these strangers that they was talking about over in Ezekiel 47, 21 to 23, that was never referring to Gentile nations. You will never see that there. It was never there. So we have to understand that the strangers that sojourn amongst the children of Israel, we seen was talking about the children of Ham, who could become as one homeborn in the land, just as we were strangers in their land. That's all that was going on. So nowhere in scripture will you see that this was talking about Gentile nations. So, but then as you see that dual nature, how you can even see us, the children of Israel, ourselves were strangers to the covenant ourselves. So you can see it. So hopefully we got some understanding with this teaching, showing you the difference on who these strangers are and who these strangers was actually talking about. So if anybody have any questions on anything, you can always shoot me an email, because my email will always be in the descriptions on the teaching. So I appreciate everyone for coming out and tuning in to this lesson. This was Deacon Ernest James with the King James Bible University, Durham, North Carolina. And I would like to say, Shalom.